Hello everyone, I'm George Kenner. I'm an industrial arts addict. I've been working for years to set up the perfect shop out in my garage, and I think I almost got it. I jumped into 3D printing and I wanted to design some of the items for my shop myself. Introduction Fusion 360. The problem that I had was I could only find point and click tutorials on YouTube. I lacked the basic function of why this program was developed. I reached out in a Facebook group for some paid tutorials. I got taken advantage of. Someone from India offered me tutorials at $15 an hour. I thought, well, why not give it a try? Before I could take the first lesson, it was going to cost me $130. Well, they got me for $15. I went back into the group and shared what had happened to me. And Swami, the instructor in the course that you're about to watch, offered to take me through the process and the background of Fusion 360 for free. This introduction is going to be on all of the tutorials, each one slightly different. The first one is going to start at the very basics of why it was even developed and the learning process that you'll go through. This will be about a 4-hour college course. Swami is very good. I asked some nonsensical questions. Maybe they'll benefit you, maybe they won't. But this course will give you the very foundation that I was looking for. It's not point and click. Again, it'll be the same introduction for each one of the courses. Swami's contacts will be placed down in the description should you want to have them. Of course, I'd love to have you join me in my pursuit of the industrial arts on my channel, but that's not the reason. Swami was nice enough to give this to me, to give everyone a better understanding of why Fusion 360 and how to use it. There's a lot of little jewels in here.
A modeler. It's a cloud-based project collaboration system. It's a team. You can have team members, you can give them privileges of access, etc. You can communicate with each other. Some of that stuff you have to do here in the web client.
Okay.
But you can also do creating and naming and moving and a bunch of the same stuff you can do in Fusion.
Okay.
But just so you know, it's here. Sometimes, rarely, but sometimes you have to come in here to do stuff.
Okay.
So there were the implicit way of assigning your constraint where Fusion tries to infer, and the explicit way where you've done things a little more intentionally or more stuff.
Okay.
Yep. Or I can choose the coincident and click one entity and then click another entity and I get the same place.
Okay.
It just depends, again, what situation you're in as to which action is going to be most appropriate. So there's often not a best way or a better way. There's just appropriate ways.
Okay.
Some ways are more appropriate. Sometimes two different ways are just different and neither is necessarily better, but they're both appropriate. It just depends. Okay. So we got that. We're back there. So we added the last element of our 5 aspects of 3D CAD. The takeaway are the 5 aspects in the 3 areas. Those are 2 biggies. Sketch-based, feature-based, time-based, parameter-based, and constraint-based.
Got it.
So once you understand those 5 things, and then details about them, and the fact that you have the 3 main areas, the viewport, the tree, and the timeline, and that they work together as a team, just as the constraints and dimensions do, now you have a very good, sound, fundamental understanding holistically of the system.
Okay.
And then you dig into the tools and you do the concrete application to realize your design intent. Too many people start with the point and click concrete stuff, but they don't really understand why they're doing it. And so the point and clicks generally don't tell you why you're doing it. What alternate way might you do it? What are the pros and cons of doing these 2 ways? How might you compare the 2? Which one is most appropriate? They don't give you any of that. And that's sorely lacking, because again, if you have a recipe, as long as you're making that recipe, all the ingredients and appliances, everything's in order, then you're good to go. You can just follow and repeat it. But if any of that stuff is missing, you don't have the understanding to get beyond where you are.
Yeah, one's being a monkey and the other's being a thinker.
Yep. And so I also look at a cook and a chef analogy. I'm trying to make more chef and not just cook. And so the chef has the fundamental understanding. If a ingredient's missing, the appliance is not working, they can adjust and they can get to where they need to go. So concept, concrete, chef and cook, and whatnot. Okay, so we got all that, and we are good to go. Excellent. We are going to talk, I think, next about parameters. Let me look at my list here and see if that's where we need to go next. Or if we've missed anything. We did rule 0, save early, save often, data panel, and the online hub. That's where we were. I call it the hub. We got our projects and our folders. Rule 1, shortcuts, active component. We didn't go into it here. Well, we did logically name the component. Many things can be named, and I generally at some point try to name as many logically and descriptively as possible to make things more understandable for me now and in the future, and for anybody I'm sharing. So we can rename the sketches, we can rename the features, we can rename the parameters, all that kind of stuff can be. We want to get a good underlying structure. And by structure, I don't just mean the physical or the geometry. I mean the sketches, parameters, timeline, tree, all of that stuff is structure. And if you have a good structure, then you have something that's easier to understand, navigate, and edit.
Okay.
So rather than just getting the final geometry, which is important, we want good underlying structure to be optimal. And that's the problem with the other way. People start in the concrete, the way they think. They make a sketch, they make a body, they do this, they figure it out on the run, they do that. They get an underlying structure, but it's unintentional. So it's not guaranteed to be optimal. Whereas if you invest some upfront time and conceptually analyze and identify the relationships and the critical things, and you build that structure intentionally from the start, then you have a framework to build from. So again, this is fundamentally different approach of thinking and doing than in general, and the way you get with a lot of the point and click stuff. Cool. So logically and descriptively naming things. We did our component circle extrude. Oh, we need to put a fillet on there. The graphic viewport, the preferences. We're going to look at our search box here. Sketches and bodies, constraints and dimensions, sketch, and long hold. So we need to do long hold and the search and the parameters. All right, let's go back to the thing here. So if you haven't discovered yet, so one of the things we're going to talk about is getting help from the system. And one of them is the search box, and go ahead and just hit S on your keyboard, and right at your cursor is going to come up a box. And it's, among other things, there's a search box, and it's waiting, it's blinking. So if I wanted to make something in here I didn't know, can I make a slot? I want to make a slot. Is there a slot? SLOT. Oh, look at that. There's an overall slot, center slot, 3-point slot. There's all kinds of slots. And then you could choose one, and now you're ready to make a slot. So rather than having to find your slot, if you don't know where it is, you just query the system with S and you start typing. And right at your cursor comes up this search box, among other things. And it is going to be different if you're outside of the sketch. That search is going to be looking for different things. So it's what we call context sensitive. Right, and that's the case in a lot of parts in the CAD. It's going to be context sensitive. What is the context? What's the situation? when I go to do an action, it's going to be based on that context. If
Okay.
my context is different, that same click is maybe going to lead to different action, different result. So that is our search. The other thing was the long click and hold. Sometimes we have stuff on top of stuff. So if we hover, go ahead and hover over the center point there and click and hold, called a long click and hold. And up comes a little identification and selection box.
Depth.
That's telling me everything under the cursor, even if it's behind and I can't get at it otherwise. And now if I just glide and I hover, it highlights that sketch point is the center of the circle because it highlighted the circle. That next sketch point is the center of the sketch. That dimension is over there, it's highlighted 100, and the profile is that closed shape that we extruded into the disc.
Okay, so mine has 2 sketch points and a 0. I'm lacking sketch dimension.
All right. Do you have our 100 dimension here?
My 100 dimensions there.
Okay. So I'm going to make sure I'm over the center point, and I just click and hold until that box comes up.
Okay. And it gives me, I have like a little, I have a constraint. Did you remove the constraint?
No, no, no. You might have been a little over to the side.
I
There
have,
you go. If you're off to the side, you get something else. It was close enough to the center points, but also close enough to the constraint. Now I have the constraint in my list. If I'm directly over this circle, it's not going to find that constraint because I'm not close enough to it.
so if I take and click out into nowhere, right?
Yep.
Okay, my cursor still has a little constraint like icon.
Oh. You have to put down your hammer. Hit escape.
Okay,
Now you just have the arrow, hopefully.
now I just have the arrow.
Now hover over the very center point. It'll light up and do a long click and hold.
Okay, so then I've got it gives me sketch point, sketch dimension D3, 0, and profile.
Perfect. There you go. Again, this gets back to the importance of being aware of what mode you're in,
Uh-huh.
what context, what mode, what's the situation.
Uh-huh.
The situation was you did not have the picker arrow cursor. You had one of the tools still selected.
Okay.
And so it's harder to remember that you have a hammer in your hand because it's not physically in your hand.
Okay.
So you got to remember to put the hammer down.
Okay.
Cool. So there's all that. There's all that. I'm going to save, make sure I'm saved up to date. And so that selecting is going to be very important in many parts of the program. And sometimes stuff is behind stuff and we can't get right at it.
Okay.
So that long click and hold allows us to identify and select things efficiently the way we need to.
Okay.
So we're going to look more at parameters, and they're extremely important in 3D CAD. They might not even be a part of some other kind of 3D modeling. But in 3D CAD, parameters are fundamental, and too many people wait to learn about them and use them or teach them. But because they are part of those 5 fundamental things, I believe they're important to show and understand up front.
Okay.
So if you look at it right now, we have 100, and that little circle with a line is the international symbol for diameter. That
Okay.
little line is the diameter. Now, we are going to get out of the sketch and finish the sketch. Get a home view. And let's talk a little bit about some other navigation. If you have your mouse, you should be able to click the center mouse roller and pan left and right. If you push it down the center and move, it should move around. So put it over here to the right somewhere. And with your scroller, put your mouse over top of here, roll in and out. You should be able to zoom in and out.
Yeah.
So we're going to scroll it down sort of small like that. And we're going to move it over here. Oops, mine is locking up on me. Get away from there. That's where we want it, right there. Cool. Got it somewhere in that.
How to recover more screen space to get rid of my documents. You know, I have data, people, upload my folder.
Yeah, hit the X. Hit the little X here at the top.
The X to the top, yeah.
There you go.
I thought that's what it was, but I didn't want to screw up.
That's all right. And when you're learning, screwing up is okay, and that's learning opportunity. And you know, I read manuals, I watch videos, I do multi-mode, whatever it takes. But at some point, you're pointing and clicking and discovering, you know, you explore, discover, and learn. As you go, you move stuff around. I mean, you're not going to kill anything. The difference is when you're just starting, you're a little cautious, you're a little anxious. If you get it the way you want it, you're not sure maybe even how you got there, but you don't want to mess it up. So you can be kind of, you know, anxious.
Yeah.
Once you understand the system, it's playful.
Yeah.
You just do stuff and move stuff and learn stuff. And if it does something you don't want, you just fix it, you go back, and it's not a problem.
Mhm.
But when you're just starting, your lack of understanding makes for a little tighter kind of interaction. Yeah. So loosen up a little bit on that, and you'll find you progress quicker by your mistakes. Cool. So we have it this size and over on the side here because we're going to put a table on the left. So we've moved this over to the side.
Okay.
Now, I like this view in this file. I might want to come back to it and not have to do all that again. So we can save that over in the tree on the left. At the top, you have a folder called Named Views.
Okay.
And if you find that folder, you can right click on Named Views. And there's only one thing there. And we're going to click on New Named View. And there it is. I'm going to rename it.
So I have top.
Yep.
I don't have.
You don't have any new ones yet. You have several of the cube, just a few of the cube ones. You get top, front, right, and home.
Yeah.
But you get to a view, some other view, and where it says named views, you right click and you create a custom new view in this file.
Oh, okay.
And then you click and rename it. I renamed it params for parameters. And if it doesn't like it, you can right click and say rename.
Yeah, I got params now too.
Cool. And I'm going to save. Control S, enter. Save early, save often, or forever hold your peace. All right. So we're going to bring up a table, but first we're going to want to look at that 100. Even though we're not in the sketch, we can go over to the tree here and find our sketch item, sketch 2 for you. Right click on it, and down near the bottom, we're going to click on Show Dimension. And now you see that it's showing the dimension even though we're not in the sketch.
Uh-huh.
In fact, we can do some editing even though we're not in the sketch and get instant feedback on the rest of the bodies and file. If you double click on 100 and type 50 enter, now it just got smaller.
Yep.
So if you've assigned dimensions inside the sketch, when you're outside of the sketch, you can show them and change them and see things change somewhat instantly. If you're in the sketch, you can change them, but you don't see the effect until you get out of the sketch. So this gives you a more interactive, dynamic way of adjusting your model and seeing the changes. In fact, if I click it, go ahead and click it and hit delete. Now that guy is not black anymore. Now I can dynamically, auto-magically change it like that.
Right? So,
Right?
and I lost I go.
You delete the dimension, select it and delete it.
Okay.
And
So
now that
Go
That
ahead.
circle turned blue because it's not locked down anymore.
Uh-huh. And I also removed my little red lock off of the sketch.
That's right, because it's no longer fully constrained.
Yeah.
Yep. And go ahead and Command Control Z back until the 50 shows up again.
Okay.
All right. So now we're going to go into a table where all of these parameters live.
Okay.
And you can be very efficient inside this table. So up at the top center, we have the modify menu. The drop down menu modify, and we're going to come all the way down near the bottom. It says change parameters, little FX change parameters.
Okay.
And make yours here on the left side of the screen, whatever you have to do to resize it, so we can see this at the same time as we see that. Cool?
Okay, cool.
Now, there are two main sections in this table. One is the model parameters, and above it are the user parameters with that little FX.
Okay.
We're going to explore the model parameters first. I see my part component, and I have a little triangle-y type thing. I can open that up, and I see my sketch and my extrude.
Okay.
And I can open them up. They have little triangles. And lo and behold, there are our parameter numbers that we entered.
Okay.
And this column called name, it automatically assigned a parameter and gave it a name, dimension 1, dimension 2, etc. So everything in a sketch that you give a number, everything in a feature that you give a number, or already has some default number, appears in the model parameters. It's
Okay.
parameter based. Now, we could come where it says 50 in this column called expression, come down to the 50 and click it once, it highlights blue. Type 75, enter. You might have to enter twice on yours, it depends. I'm on a Mac.
Means it modified to 75, another way to edit.
Now it says 75.
But,
So we just,
okay.
Yep.
So, but it didn't, this is a way to change the sketch, but it's still locked down, it's still constrained.
That's right, because it has a value assigned to the diameters is different than what it was before.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still locked down.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, the real power comes when we make custom user parameters.
Okay.
So we're going to do that now. We're going to come up to the top here. There's a plus button. We're going to hit the plus.
Okay.
And I am going to type diameter. And it is case sensitive, upper and lower case matters. I can hit tab twice, tab, and now it took me down to the expressions field. And I'm going to say 100, enter. Nothing's going to change in the viewport. We've just made the parameter. We haven't assigned it yet.
Okay.
So now in the parameter, user parameters, now we have an item called diameter, and it's 100.
Okay.
So we come back down to our 75. We click once on that, and we start to type diameter, D-I-A. It's the only one in the list. It found it. Go ahead and hit once to accept it and once to apply it. So now, if you have successfully created a user,
You said hit once. I've got diameter written in.
Yep. And then just hit enter until it changes.
Enter. Okay. So now I'm at 100.
Yep. And so you have applied this custom user parameter that you named diameter, and you gave it an expression, which is 100. Then you applied it to this model parameter for the diameter. And now you have a little FX in addition to that little circle, you have an FX.
Okay.
To let you know that there's a function, an expression, a user parameter has been assigned to it. And let's do the same thing for height. Plus H-E-I-G-H-T. Let's make this 20 bigger so we see a change. Tab twice, 20, enter, and And then we apply it. Now I went negative. This one was the extrude, we went -10.
Uh-huh. So,
If I can do it, I often like to go negative so I can still see the sketch on the top.
okay.
It depends what you're doing. So type negative height, negative HEI. And now it's going to be 20 instead of 10.
Okay. So. Okay, so did I do that right? Oh, back to expression.
Yep. So we're doing the same idea. We're creating a custom user parameter. And then we're assigning it to a model parameter.
So
Create custom, assign, create custom, assign.
diameter dimension 2, sketch. Feeling like I got lost in creating the expression. If I did it right.
So up in here, you have your user parameters. You should have the diameter and you should have a second one that we did with the plus button.
It's height. Okay.
Height. And you gave it 20.
And I gave it 20.
And so in the model parameters for the extrude, the blue icon here, you have what's called a long distance. And currently yours should say -10. That's what we
Yeah, that's
applied
what it
earlier.
says, -10.
Click once on it to highlight it blue. And then type -HEI.
Height 20 millimeters.
Yep, negative. Put a negative sign in the front
Yeah.
and then hit enter. And did it get thicker yet? Or you have to enter again?
But we still went back down.
Yeah, but now we're 20 instead of 10.
Yeah.
Right. You can do Control S right from here, Control S, enter. And it takes you out of the table, saves everything, takes you out of the table, and then saves your file. Just one less step than having to go hit OK.
I'm hitting Control S. And I'm still got my parameters.
Then hit OK. Just go ahead and finish it up. It might work different in Windows, I'm not sure.
Okay.
And now do your save, Control S.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna put a fillet. I know that the hotkey default is F for fillet, but I
Okay.
don't know it. So hit S for search. Start typing fillet. And there it is, fillet. And then click it. And now you've just invoked the fillet tool. And there is the box.
I did. Okay. I went to boundary fill. I don't know how that happened.
There were two. You selected the other one.
And then right fillet, FIL.
It's the first, I think, in the list.
Yeah, and I got fillet.
All right. If you hover over that blue button is the active button. If you hover and wait, it's going to instruct you. Select edges, faces, or features to create fillet.
Okay.
So if you don't know what to do, that's going to tell you. If you move away into nowhere space and you hover, it gives you some semblance of that. Select edges, faces, or features to fill it.
Okay.
So we're always looking for the feedback in the graphic, the icons, and the text. So hover over the top face, click to select it, and stop. So now it has, in this list here at the top, it says one face.
Okay.
And down here is that little tear off flyaway. That is this field right here.
Okay.
It automatically pulled that one off for us, and it automatically highlighted it, waiting for us to type. Let's do 5, enter. And now we should have a little fillet here that's 5.
So mine didn't apply. So let's see if I get this right. Go down and select it in the history. Because
Yeah, in the history, do you have a little icon for the fillet?
Yeah, I
Hover
have
over it,
icon for the fillet, but I don't have it didn't.
edit that. Yep, edit that one.
Edit feature.
Yep.
Okay,
Does
what
it,
happened to
does
mine
it,
was it
does
had
it,
0005 instead of 5.
well, that'll make a difference.
Hit OK. So
Yep,
now I have, looks like yours.
excellent. Let's hide the sketch item in our tree at the bottom of our tree. We don't need to see that anymore. I'm gonna hide the item.
Okay.
I'm gonna save. And we're gonna go back one more time into the sketch to show even more of the power of the parameters. So under modify again, all the way near the bottom, FX change parameters. And hopefully our table is off to the side the way we left it.
You're so much faster at this.
You slow me down anytime.
Okay, so I'm going back to
Modify drop down here. And I have hotkeys for all of this as
and I'm going
well.
to go to change parameters.
Yep, change parameters. And your table should still be over here on the left.
And it is.
So here's some of the power, extra power parameters. There's a general thing in 3D CAD where one thing controls another thing.
Okay.
One thing is driving, the other is driven.
Okay.
And these relationships give us a lot of power in our design to do it and control it and whatnot. And so one of the driving and drivens is going to be by putting some math instead of just a number.
Okay.
We're going to put some math so things depend on each other.
Okay.
Or they have some relationship. So let's make a thing called radius for our fillet.
Okay.
So hit the plus button, type in radius, tab twice, 1, 2. We're going to make this radius depend on the height.
Okay.
So,
So my expression is.
yep. So we have one called radius, and we start to type height, HEI. There's only one in the hit list. Hit enter. And now say divide by 2, /2. Don't do anything after that.
/2. Okay.
So now we have some math in here, some simple operation of divide. And now under the value, you see it says 10.
Okay.
Because the height is currently 20.
Okay.
We divide it by 2, we get 10.
Okay.
And so this expression in our table here is the math. And this column called value is the result of that math.
Okay.
We have no control. We can't change anything in the value. It's the result of this one.
Okay.
And that's why it is not editable here. It's just the value that is the result of the math in the expression.
Okay.
Now say okay. And we have to apply it. So we have to go into our model parameters. There's our fillet that we made. Open it up. So if you open up the fillet in the model parameters, we will see where our radius is right here, that 5.
Okay. Got it.
Click it once, start to type radius, and then go ahead and apply it.
So it's going to say radius 10 millimeter, right?
Yep. Now, if we go back up to our user parameters where we have our height of 20, change that maybe to 10, back to 10. And now our height is half of it. Our radius, I should say, is half of 10 is 5.
Okay.
So we built in this relationship between things.
Okay. So half 10. Okay. Gotcha.
And so the whole point here is to be more efficient, effective and productive in our CADing. If we have a parameter-driven design,
Okay.
and we've named things and we've applied things in good practice, logical ways, we can do a lot of our modeling and adjusting right here in this table. We don't have to spend time finding what sketch, which dimension. We don't have to spend time finding which feature, which field. We've done it all logically here, and we can quickly adjust things and do things in here.
Oh, this is so cool, dude.
Yeah. So this is why I'm stressing a holistic fundamental understanding of the system of 3D CAD.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
then we'll be able to,
this
you
is
got my-
exactly what I was looking for. Exactly.
then we'll to be effective, efficient, and productive. And this is the thing that I think is lacking in many of the point and click YouTubes and the courses. They jump ahead of the fundamental understanding. And people don't realize how much harder they're working than they have to, and how poorly and suboptimal their results are.
I hear you.
And they generally find it out. So you can get away with a lot of sloppy work. You can just do stuff and make stuff. And if it comes out the way you want it and you 3D print it or whatever, then you're happy. But the real problem often comes when you have to go back and try to edit, modify something.
Mm-hmm.
Then your poor structure raises its ugly head.
Mm-hmm.
So anyhow, that's my defense of justification why you should value this other way. All right, so we can go ahead. Oh yeah, last thing in here. There is a nice little search box at the very top.
Okay.
If I start to type height, click in it, HEI, it has now gotten rid of all the clutter, because you might have 10, 50, parameters or something in there.
Uh-huh.
So we can filter it out. And now it shows me in my user parameters, I have one called height. That height is applied in this user parameter radius. And that height user parameter is applied here in the model parameter for the extrude distance.
Mm-hmm.
So if we logically name things and we apply them by good practice and logic here, we can very quickly get at stuff and change stuff and create stuff. Kind of the difference between having a roadmap and knowing how to read it versus just being thrown out in the wilderness. So there we go. All right, awesome. Let's see where we go. Okay, I'm happy to keep going. If you're willing and able to have the energy, I keep going. You're good?
Don't waste time stopping.
Very well. You're energized. I like it. I know that I can overwhelm, so I have to check just in case. You're good. All right. So under here, we have gone through all of this stuff right here so far, at least. Parameter table, we did our 3 critical areas. We did our 5 aspects. I will just recap on this one because we covered these in sort of a ad hoc manner. We did the navigation, the view cube, the named views, a couple more things to do with that. And then the structure, we did document settings, named views. We'll pick this up. We did some help. So this is the next big bunch of stuff we're going to do here. The help system, the undo, redo systems, selecting stuff, and some other after that. But let's back up and recap the user interface stuff that we kind of picked up in the moment troubleshooting kind of way. So I'm going to go back to Fusion. So in the user interface, in addition to these 3 areas, viewport, tree, and timeline, we talked about our workspace. In fact, if we hover over there, we have workspaces. And in a workspace, you have a toolbar. And on this toolbar, you have these tools. And these tools come from these drop-down menus. And you can add or remove them based on your workflow. And then you have tabs. You can click on them now. You go to different contexts. There's surface. You'll notice that the color changed. Some of the icons are the same, and some have changed. So each context, mesh, STLs, sheet metal, plastic, injection molding stuff, etc. So each of these contexts will have different tools for the context. You also have some controls up here for your data panel, your file handling, your undo, redo. And then we've also explored somewhat here another area for applications, our preferences and other things. To help, we'll get into this and some other ones here. And then we also have our tabs, which is our current file, which they call technically a document. But your file, your design, your document, this is the title bar, and you get more tabs as you go. In fact, there is our plus button to make a new tab, and whatnot. So that is recapping and bringing into focus the interface, the user interface. Oh, and our little toolbar hiding down here, our mini toolbar, and that's in two sections, the navigation on the left and the display here on the right. And so that is all good there. And then we were gonna jump, so that was just picking up a couple stray things. Oh yeah, navigation. Navigation and help. All right, so we have already discovered, let's get a home view, go into home view here. With your mouse, you have discovered you can use your roller scroller wheel to zoom in and out.
Okay.
You can push the center mouse down and do a pan, gliding, moving left, right, up, down. If you add the shift key and do the center, you should get orbit.
Shift key and up and down.
And the center, push the center scroller and hold the shift. That should orbit your view.
When I hold down shift, okay. It's not so good, but it could be my mouse.
Yeah, there's other ways. We'll get other ways. Okay.
It does
So,
it. Not doing a really good job.
So we have zoom, pan, and orbit.
Okay.
And I'm explicitly saying orbit and not rotate to make a distinction. So I'm not a grammar Nazi, but to the extent that language terminology makes things unambiguous and accurate, then we will talk about it. Rotate, I reserve for changing the geometry itself.
Yeah.
Transforming the geometry. That's to rotate the geometry. Right now, I'm just orbiting my view to a different viewpoint, but my geometry is fixed. It's not changing.
Okay.
Over here in your view cube, you had your home. Go home. You have your side views. If you get to a side view, like go to the front view, and we're looking at the puck edge on. We also found that we had these guys here, right?
Yep.
Make it vertical. We also have these little triangles around it. Go to one of the horizontal triangles, and now it's going to flip it.
Now, one thing I've noticed is very minor, but I have my axes on where I can see the, my Z-axis line. And on yours, is it maybe because
you mean here in the center?
Yeah,
yeah, it's one of these folders mislabeled origin.
And mine's currently off, but on the screen I'm getting the relative position of the Z origin.
Yeah, there's a bug you might have. So in the tree, starting at the top, that's the root, that's the top of the tree. Go down till you find the first origin mislabeled, first folder mislabeled origin.
Okay.
Hit the triangle to open it up.
Okay.
And hit the eyeball to turn it on.
My eyeball's on.
Do you get a representation in the center of the screen here?
Yeah.
That system is made of the, click on the X, and you see how it highlights it? Click the X here to select it. And in the viewport, it's highlighted it.
Yeah.
With your cursor arrows at the bottom right of your keyboard, hit the down, and it's going to go to the Y. And then go to the Z. and then any pair of those, the XY, the XZ, and the YZ.
Okay.
That system is made up of those three axes, those three planes, and the very first one is the actual origin,
Okay.
right? That's the 0, 0, 0. In fact, if you look at the bottom right of your screen, in the data info area, it says origin point 0, 0, 0.
Yep.
Right? So this folder should be named coordinate system,
Okay.
because that's what it is. The origin is this specific point in this system.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is the fixed world coordinate system. It doesn't move. Everything lives inside this coordinate system.
Mm-hmm.
But every component gets its own local coordinate system.
Okay.
And if you turn it on and off, you'll see it's right on top of the world to start with.
Okay.
But it can be moved around depending on what you're up to. But initially, that local is right on top of the world.
Okay.
And if you turn them off, they should go away. If they're showing, you need to wake it up and turn them on and off again.
Okay.
So right now, you should not have any Z-axis or any indications in your viewport in the center.
Yeah, got it.
Yep. So nothing is selected in our tree, nothing is selected in our timeline, nothing is selected in here, and all of our origin coordinate system folders are off. Eyeball is off. Now you should be looking good.
Yeah, I look just exactly like you.
Let's go ahead and save what we got. I don't know where we are. We'll save that. Now, we also noted over here, we had our faces, sides, and then we had our edges. And here, if I want to see underneath it, I can come down to my bottom corner edge and click it. And now I'm looking up underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can go back home. I generally don't do this, but you can click and drag the cube as well. I'm going to go home again. Wait for you. We can go home. There's one other area we're not going to go into in detail, but just to show that it's there. Down to the right, there's a little icon. Click on that, and there's other stuff. We'll worry about that.
Yeah.
We'll worry about that later, just to know that it's there.
Okay.
Cool. So part of what I'm going to do is expose you to a lot of the things and know how to find them, and then go off and learn about them on your own.
Okay.
Okay. So the last little bit on navigation in the viewport is our navigation and display toolbar at the bottom. Now, we have a hand for pan, but we already know how to do that with the mouse. We have a magnifier, but we already know how to zoom in and out with the scroller.
Okay.
But we have this other magnifier. If you hover over it, it should say zoom window. Does it say zoom window?
Yeah, it's not lighting off.
There's a triangle. There's a triangle next to it. You can open it up. There's zoom window and there's fit to screen. F6.
Yeah.
Click on the window. Now the icon is a little magnifier.
Okay.
I might be interested in this little point at 2 o'clock or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
If I make a little box, I just click and drag a box and let go, it instantly comes into there.
Okay.
This is faster than going zoom and pan, zoom and pan, zoom and pan, zoom and pan.
Okay.
We can just window right in and boom, we're there. Now, we like this view. So by way of review, we're going to come back to our tree at the top under named views. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say new, and I'm going to rename that zoomed in or whatever. Boom. So now we know we can always get back there. Now here's what we've don't want to do. We don't want to do some kind of orbit and have that thing go flying out of focus off the screen.
Okay.
So we're going to use this orbit tool, but there's more to it than meets the eye. Hover over the first icon that says orbit.
Okay.
Open up the triangle and make sure we're on the first one called constrained orbit. Click that one.
Okay.
It's more well behaved. You might need to do the other free one, but it's a little wonky.
Okay.
So it's now highlighted in blue, and we get our little icon that tells me I've got the orbit tool.
Got it.
But the fancy thing, and don't do this yet, I'm going to click and let go. And that's going to center it on that click. So I'm going to go here in the center of the screen. I'm going to click and let go. And you see how it moved a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead and click and let go on that edge and recenter it. Now, when you click and drag, it's going to orbit around that point that you just set.
Oh, okay.
If you didn't do that and you just grab the orbit tool, like makes sense.
I'd be flying all over the table.
That's right. If you click and drag, it goes crazy on you. So, and it doesn't tell you this. You have to go to the manual or something. So click and let go is going to set that as your pivot point.
Okay.
And then you go. Now, there's other magic here. Right now in the center of the screen, you get these two circles with the arrowheads. Glide your mouse slowly to the right. Slowly, slowly, until it changes the icon. See where it changes?
Yeah. I'm literally off the pattern now.
That's all right. If you get your nose on the screen, there's a big faint circle on the screen.
Yeah.
You are now on the circle. So it's changed. If you get to 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, you get yet a different icon.
Okay.
If you're at 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, you just have one circle and it's going to orbit around that plane.
Okay.
If you're at 12 o'clock or 6 o'clock, it's going to be the vertical plane and it's going to do it this way.
Okay.
If you're on the circle but not on one of those cardinal 4, it's going to roll down the way you're looking.
Okay.
There you go. Now, lastly, if you radially go out any direction, this stuff is any because it's a circle. If you keep going out, it's going to change yet again. And now you get a, move this out of the way. Now you get an arrow pointing at the cursor.
Uh-huh.
That's cancel. Click it now, and you've just put down your hammer.
Okay, so I'm just back to a normal cursor now.
That now you're a picker. You're in the picker mode. Yep. Now you could hit escape and get rid of it, right? I can do my tool here, and I can hit escape, and I just put down my tool. But sometimes you've got your finger on the mouse and you're over here somewhere, and it's just as easy to click away.
Sure.
To cancel it. And so that's the hidden power of this orbit tool that many people miss. All right. And there's other stuff in here that you're going to want to explore ultimately. But much of the stuff you do with your mouse. That's usually the quickest and most of the actions you can do with your mouse. Other explicit stuff for a specific face or something, and other stuff here you do with your cube. And then lastly, you have your window and you have your orbit that you need to do from down here.
Perfect.
So all that combination of stuff and knowing about them and how to use them is going to allow you to choose appropriate actions for given situations. That's the whole idea. Cool. Let's look at the help system. Every program has a help system, and you want to get at that early on. Same way you want to get preferences early on. Now, there's good news and bad news. The good news is there's lots of help. The bad news is there's lots of help. So we need to understand it so we can dig in quickly, efficiently, and get at what we want. So we've already discovered some of it. We did S and it brought up our little search box. That's some help. If we hover over an icon, we get a little tooltip. That gives us some help. If we choose a tool and wait, it's going to give us an icon indication and some text instructions.
Okay.
Yep. If we have a feature, we can hover over our active button and whatnot, and it's going to give us some help, etc. So those are all ways we can hit cancel. Those are all ways we can get it help. Now, we also have, as many programs, a question mark help button. Go ahead and click that guy here. And there's a bunch of stuff in there. We'll ignore most of it for the moment. Here we have our search magnifier, and we click to activate it. Say I'm interested in that fillet that we made. I'm going to start typing FILLET there and hit enter. And it's going to now go online. And this is a bigger than your user manual. It's called the knowledge base. So in addition to the user manual, which they call the product documentation, that's your user manual, just another name. You also have the forum where people are inquiring and answering questions.
Okay.
You have a blog, you have technical, and you have other stuff. So your knowledge base is big. Inside it, you have things.
Okay.
Now, we just did fillet, and it's finding us stuff under product documentation and any of these other areas. Let's narrow our search even further to just do product documentation, just the user manual, your little checkbox. Do you see this panel over here? You need to be at the right zoom scale.
Okay, I've just been watching on yours. I didn't open it.
Very well. Go to your Fusion. Find the question mark at the top.
Type in fillet.
Type in fillet and hit enter.
Okay, now I'm there.
All right. And now, if you're at the right zoom level in your browser, you should see your filters over on the left.
I spelled it wrong. It took me to the wrong spot.
Go ahead and correct that. You're doing fine, by the way. Any false steps along the way are expected.
Okay, so I'm there, but it seems just a little bit different, but not too much.
So at this point, you should be in the knowledge base.
I'm in
In the little search area, you should have fillet.
We have fillet.
And over here in the filters area, we want to just look at hits that have to do with the user manual product documentation.
Okay.
We're narrowing our way down in.
Okay.
And now the product documentation, you have the main fillet reference, you have the create. Let's go to the fillet reference. Now we're digging down in deeper.
Okay.
And we have two places that show us the same thing. Above fillet reference, it says design solid, modify solids, fillet reference.
Okay.
That's the path down into our help.
Okay.
But if we look over here on the left, we get the same thing, but in a tree form. Design, solid, modify solids, and finally, fillet reference down here. You have to dig a little more to find them all here.
Got it.
But on the left, we have the same structure, underlying structure in a tree versus in a path.
Sure.
And anywhere we have a colored guy with an underline, that is a link. So let's go back up one level to where it says modify solids.
Okay.
Now we're showing all of the things in the modify drop down, not just the fillet, but all the other things along with it at that same level.
Perfect.
Cool. So, and at the bottom, by the way, so here we have some text, some graphics. Sometimes we have animations. And at the very, very, very bottom, sometimes there are going to be some links, some more links related stuff.
Cool.
Now, all the way back to the top, all the way up in the right where we have our search. Let's replace that with extrude. I'm going to double click, select that, EXTRUDE, enter. Now on the left, we're going to filter out for the forum. In this case, maybe we're looking to answer a question, a problem we have, find out if other people have that problem and have solved it. So we're going to filter out on the filters on the left, and we're going to do the checkbox for accepted solutions in the forum. Now we're looking at just the forum results.
Can't extrude. I'm trying to extrude using.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we don't have the path in the product documentation because we're not in that area. We're in the forums. Now, let's go ahead and click on the first one, can't extrude, whatever yours says. Now, here's the problem with forums. A lot of people are saying a lot of things, which may or may not be useful or correct. And if the answer is there, it might be some time and effort to go through it. But the good news is, in here, people can flag an answer as a solution.
Okay.
So we're going to scroll down slowly, looking for green. Aha. This user, which is actually a pretty good guy, I know this guy from here, J. Hackney, 1972, has identified that he gave a solution.
Okay.
You can have one or more of these. So click on go to solution and wait a couple of seconds. Takes a moment. Now it's going to dig you down into this thread on the forum to that specific place.
Okay.
And so now he has even supplied a little video. And he's even supplied a file for you to play with. This guy's really good. And now, if we go back up a little bit more slowly, at the top where we get his name, over here we get our little 3 dots menu.
Okay.
If you click on that, down inside it, if you want to save and come back or share, you can click on this permalink.
Okay.
And it will copy that URL, that website, and then somebody else can use it to get right back to here.
Cool.
So there you have it. So in addition to the S key and the tool tips and the hovering and all that kind of stuff, you have this very valuable knowledge base, which is made up of a whole lot of stuff. We haven't gone into all of it. You'll want to revisit it. But in this knowledge base, the 2 areas we've looked at is the product documentation, user manual, and the forum where people are asking and helping.
Okay.
Cool. And that is what you need to know about that. Back over to Fusion. Back here, back to home, save away. All right. So very fundamental things are super important from the very start. The user interface, the system, the preferences, the help system, navigating the viewport and other areas, selecting things, which we'll do next. All of those are really fundamentals that they generally don't teach you. They just start pointing and clicking. So let's talk about selection. There are obvious intuitive ways to select. Sometimes they're appropriate, sometimes they're not. And there are other more sophisticated ways to get at select things that we want to select. So I'm going to go back to Fusion, going back to Fusion. We've saved ourselves here. Cool. All right. So right now I can just click on stuff and it'll start selecting. Yep.
Okay.
If I select in the middle and I look down at the lower right, it tells me I selected one face. If I go to an edge and click, it tells me one edge. And if I had my sketch showing, it could tell me if I have a point or a curve or anything inside my sketch. But let's say that I only want to select edges. I don't want to accidentally select anything else.
Okay.
We have a handy dandy big blue square button at the top right. Hover over there called selection. And if we go to the little triangle under the select drop down, we have a bunch of selection stuff. The first one we're going to look at is the second to last that says selection priority. And inside select in the drop down under selection priority, we're going to go to the third one that says edge. Select edge priority.
Okay.
Now, if I do that center face, it won't select it. It's only going to recognize what I told it, edges. So once we get a lot of clutter and things are going on, we might want to hone in on specific entities. So we have this selection filtering. Now, what did that do? Let's look a little closer. We're going to open up that select drop down again. And we're going to go to the last item and just wait. And we see a list of all the things that we could filter for. When we did select priority, it just set that list for us.
Okay.
Now, if I go into that list and at the top it says select all, if I click that, now I'm back to the default where it recognizes everything.
Okay.
And now I could individually go turn things on and off in a more fine comb way. So the selection priority was just a quick way to set this list. Now I'm going to get you to add some of those priorities to your toolbar. So I click away. You'll notice I have things you don't have, these 4 icons here in the select. So we're going to get you to have them up there so you'll be more efficient. So we're going to open up again our select. We're going to hover over our selection priority, hover over the first item. And once you've hovered and gotten your way all the way there, you get our little familiar 3-dot menu.
Okay.
Click that one. And the very first one you want to turn on, which is pinned to toolbar. And do that successively for all the other ones, one after another. And you'll get 1, 2, 3, 4 will be added up there in your toolbar. And you'll be able to quickly get at them.